37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Pixelated Paranormal, episode 100!
100.
Man, this is it, folks. We have made it. What a momentous occasion it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, holy.
Congrats to you guys. I haven't been there the whole 100, but you guys both have. So congrats.
Yeah, you know, you've been here in one way or the other.
Yeah, you at least been here since episode 40-ish.
Yeah, whether you were a man on the street or you were in the back seat, you have been here, baby. Yeah, hell yeah. Congrats, guys. I am super proud, very excited, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I never figured it would go this long. Yeah. And this is quite exciting.
I thought we would at least been burnt out by like episode 60. Like, you know what? We've hit everything we want to hit. Like, what do we do now? And shit just keeps coming.
Yeah. That's very true. And like I said on the Instagram, man, you know, it's been a fun ride so far, but the haunted highways are long, and this ride is far from over because there's still so much crazy shit to talk about.
Words.
Oh, yeah. More words to mispronounce.
Right. More facts to butcher.
More slip-ups for Preston.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That no one gets to hear because Sean cuts them out.
Right. Hell yeah. Well, congratulations, guys. Mm-hmm. And I think first and foremost, we've got some packages here from Big Dobbs, the man himself, with instructions
dude. I've been waiting to open this thing. Now,
yeah, don't open until episode 100.
Yeah. So are you going to keep all this in with the sounds of us opening it and stuff?
Yeah, might as well. I mean,
so he knows it's real.
Somebody's probably
all right. I opened mine.
Enjoying that sound.
Emptying it now.
Oh, fuck me.
Look at that.
That smells delicious.
It's Big Dobbs Beard Balm, Omaha, Nebraska, with his signature logo on there. And it is the flavor of, holy shit, fucking mint, boys and girls. And everybody in between. Yeah, it's fucking insane. It smells so good.
It does. That smells as fresh as a Himalayan Yeti, folks.
Oh my God, that's so tight.
Yes, it does. It's like ice cold vanilla.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that is good. I smelled it when I opened up the envelope.
I'm going on a vacation tomorrow. I'm going to ride roller coasters, so this thing is going to be fucking...
Oh, damn.
Just smelling up the entire roller coaster with barf.
It's like having vanilla ice on your face.
Right.
Vanilla ice, baby.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Alan, you've outdone yourself, sir. This smells fantastic.
Yes, it does indeed.
If I didn't already have fresh in my beard right now, I'd probably put some of that on there. And that's not a plug. That's just us saying this is some good shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
We'll plug it at the end of the show.
Mm-hmm. There's like 3 guys at my job that have beards, and I'm always trying. I go in there like Preston every day, like just sitting there plugging that same line.
Fresh
Do you want a beard? Like, you need a beard.
You need a beard? Want a beard? If you want to grow a beard that'll make Bigfoot say, Jesus tits, and check out BigDobbsBeardBomb.com.
I mean, that's worth its weight in gold right there. The money you spent to hear Bigfoot say Jesus tits.
Yeah. True.
I think... Hey, and Preston, what an excellent segue. I should go ahead and drop a disclaimer. So, as always, we aren't here to offend anybody, but on this episode, we will be briefly discussing a little bit about religion. So if you believe in God and Jesus, we aren't here to take them away from you. And if you don't believe, then this is just another folk story for you to enjoy. But we will be touching a little bit on religion here after a bit, or at least the devil, so... Yeah. So on this episode, Old 100, it's going to be packed full of ghosts and aliens, the devil, and boy, oh boy, you guys came through listener stories aplenty.
Like crazy? So many listener stories, which is awesome.
Yeah, we were really excited. We've got at least 3 to drop on this episode, I think.
And what better way to rock out 100 than with haunted rock and roll?
Yeah, this is going to be paranormal stories that have to do with musicians.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because music has always been important to the 3 of us way before and outside the podcast. Music has kind of brought us together in different ways. Maybe it was Steven listening to ICP and me secretly just balling my hands into fists, till my palms bled. Or, me and Preston talking about...
or me and you, the very first band we ever connected over. Punchline.
Who was that?
Done.
Bone Thugs and Harmony?
No, Punchline, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bone Thugs.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
And one of my favorite progressive rock bands is Tool, and how Sean hates Tool and how all the songs sound the same. But you know what? I still love you, Sean.
Well, you know what? Speaking of Tool, you did take me to see El Puss. No, is that
El Puss?
Yeah.
Oh my god,
El Puss.
El Puss? What?
I saw El Puss.
Sounds like a Danny Trejo film.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you got to hear El Puss. El Puss.
El Puss.
No, Pussifer. You and Eric and Patty took me to see Pussifer, and that was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I am fucking jealous.
So, music has been a very big part of our lives, as many of you guys, you listeners as well. So we've got some otherworldly encounters to share that have been experienced by notable bands. But before that, let's drop a little bit of news, boys. We've only got one story for you, but I promise it'll be magical.
Oh.
Because an Indian stuntman is now missing after failing to complete an underwater escape.
Why do they do this?
Chanchel or Chanchel Lahiri, also known as Wizard Mandrake, unfortunately is missing after following his attempt to complete a Harry Houdini-like escape trick. He was tied up and lowered into India's Ganges River, but never rose to the surface after the trick was supposed to be done.
So now he's known as the drowned god.
Or the best disappearing trick ever. A magician went missing Sunday while performing an underwater live stunt in the Ganges River in India, in a place I won't even attempt to pronounce because I know I'll be offensive. He was tied up with steel chains and ropes and lowered into the river in Millennium Park. The magician, however, disappeared near pillar number 28 of the Hawa Bridge. Mr. Mandrake was reportedly drowned as he did not come out of the river while his family, police, and onlookers awaited for him. And so far, that story I came across this afternoon around 11 or 12 in the afternoon. There have been no updates that I've seen so far, so it looks like this guy actually may have been drowned, unfortunately. Which is really shitty, because he's 40 years old, and he did a similar trick 21 years ago in the same area. But, yeah, it's a bummer, man. And that one, he was tied inside a bulletproof glass box with chains and locks and dropped down, and he came out after 29 seconds. So this is either some David Blaine shit, or unfortunately, he went out doing what he loved.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big river.
Oh, yeah.
The current of that, I mean, if he did drown, I don't think you'd ever find the body because, it just would, basically wash you away out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So, not to be insensitive, but he's probably in, the Indian Ocean somewhere.
Man. Do you guys love magic? I secretly love magic.
I've never really seen an actual magic show, but when I watch them on Netflix or YouTube, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I love the movie Now You See Me 1 and 2, but
hell yeah, those are awesome. I fucking loved those.
I like the movie The Prestige with David Bowie.
That was good.
Oh fuck yeah, that's one of my favorite movies.
I forgot all about that. He wasn't that.
I remember when The Illusionist came out and Prestige both came out, I think maybe right around the same exact time.
Yep.
And when we went to see The Prestige, I actually thought we were going to see The Illusionist. And then I'm like, any minute, wasn't Paul Giamatti in that?
Yeah.
Any minute, Paul Giamatti's going to come on screen. And then halfway through, I'm like, Yeah, we went and saw the wrong movie, but I ended up loving it and thinking that The Illusionist was just okay.
Yeah. Because David Bowie does that to you.
He does. He does a lot of things to me.
It works you out.
Well, I think let's get things kicked off and get started. And Steve, you wanna jump in first, man?
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool.
All right, so I had this idea to do this like rock and roll musicians, all this stuff with pertaining to where they got their so-called, not so-called skills. They're all very extremely talented. Their skills to where they were unbelievable, where before they weren't. So maybe they made a deal with the devil or something like this. And the most famous out of all these is obviously the tale of Robert Johnson, the blues player. Now, what sparked my interest in this is that they have a series on Netflix that's like individual episode, basically like mini documentaries about musicians. So the series is called Remastered. It's amazing. This one's called Devil at the Crossroads. It's a Netflix original docu-series. Check it out. It's the shit. And this is where like my interest came to this. All this information came between that and online and stuff like that. So Robert Johnson was born in Hazelhurst, Mississippi on or around May 8th, 1911 and died 27 years later on August 16th, 1938, spoiler alert, at Three Forks near Greenwood, Mississippi. Now, the crazy thing about Robert Johnson is that because of his like no birth certificate, no death certificate, like it's hard to tell exactly when he was born, but this is like all the research that people have done. So, Robert had an okay childhood, lots of moving around, going to and fro, not uncommon for the South. Robert Johnson grew up in Memphis and learned the basics of the guitar from a brother. Then, aged around 8 or 9, Robert moved back to the Delta to live with his mother and new husband, Dusty Willis. He became known as Little Robert Dusty. By the time he was 19, Robert had married Virginia Travis on February 17, 1929, in Penton, Mississippi. She was 16 and died in April 1930 as she was giving birth. Can you get any more bluesy than that? That's fucked up, dude. Like that. I mean, to be that young and for her to be that young, you know what I'm saying? He was older than her, obviously, and then with her being so 16 and dying at birth, Jesus.
There's a red house over yonder. Lord, that's where my baby stays.
Yeah,
and I mean, wasn't the problem too that he was kind of playing little stints here and there with his guitar, and he told her to go ahead and go up to her parents' house for the baby, and he'd catch up.
Yeah, he'd catch up and all that stuff. And let's see, that's probably the next wife, I think.
Nope, this should be his first
wife. Okay, I couldn't remember. That article didn't say much about that in that, but I remember that.
I watched the docu too, so I'll be your backup singer.
Sweet
on this performance.
All right, so around 1930, Sondhaus, considered by many to be the greatest gifted of the Delta bluesmen of his time. And the Delta blues is very signature style. A lot of great blues artists came from that era and in that time. He moved to live in Robbinsville, which is when Robert first heard him play. Sondhaus recalled many years later, he blew a harmonica and he was pretty good with that, but he wanted to play guitar. It was from House and his friend Willie Brown that Robert learned. He would watch them play, and when they took a break, he would use one of their guitars. According to House, he was not good at all. Such a racket you never heard. Get that guitar away from that boy, people would say. He's running people crazy with it. So basically getting up there while they're taking a break and trying to play something, and people are like, geez, what are you doing? Just let us sit in peace until the musicians come out. Just like somebody getting up there, like break, like the cartoons when they play something and then like the glass breaks.
The Bugs Bunny cartoon when he sings and the opera and shit.
In May 1931, Robert married Coletta Kraft in Hazelhurst, Mississippi, but continued to travel the Delta, improving his guitar, playing at juke joints and picnics. Awesome. By 1932, Robert played for Son and Willie. They were staggered by his improvement. He was so good when he finished, all our mouths were standing open. Now, the thing with this is that like these places he would play with the juke joints, like they were all African American, and this is the South. So you're facing, while you're traveling from town to town, you're having to duck racism. You're having to duck people trying to kill you.
Yeah, lynch mobs.
Yeah, like it's pretty crazy. So to face all that, to get to the next juke joint to play your music, you must be pretty passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? Most people would just be like, screw that, I'm just going to stay on the farm. But that wasn't his journey.
Well, and with that too, like we're dealing with a time where we're having, I forget when slavery was abolished, but you're dealing with like second and third generation slaves who they're no longer slaves, but they're still kind of working in the trade, so to speak. They're free, but they're still, plowboys. They're still farmer hands.
They're still working the railroads.
Extreme poverty. And
right,
racism,
and segregation,
at every front. And segregation all the way. Like it's insane.
Right, and I mean, like the last thing you want to do, you've had the entire world stripped from you, and you're finally getting some humanity. The last thing you want, some jackass, breaking a guitar in the club that you work so hard to get, which is probably just a little like lean-to shack, in some cases.
Yep.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get this because most people probably haven't heard of Robert Johnson. Oh, yeah. I mean, just listen to the way that guitar's being played. Okay, continue, Steve.
So good. So that was all within basically like 2 years. But next time Son and Willie, they were like, what the hell happened? Like, this kid's amazing now. And they're like, how could that have been in just like basically 1 year? It's like, it's unheard of. So Robert resumed the Delta wanderings as well as visiting Chicago, New York, Detroit, and St. Louis that we know of. The story goes that he would often concentrate his performance on just one woman in the audience. What a pimp. A risky business in a world where men were happy to fight when they felt aggrieved. Has that changed? By the time he was in his...
It's a grievous behavior, sir.
By the time he was in his mid-20s, Johnson's second wife had died without giving birth. Like, geez. Like, come on. Like,
dude's cursed.
Yeah, it's cursed, right?
Boy's got a cursed seed.
His first release was Terraplane Blues, coupled with Kind-Hearted Woman Blues. It would be the only one that sold in reasonable numbers at the time. Next came 32 through 20 Blues, coupled with Last Fair Deal Gone Down, followed by I'll Believe, I'll Dust My Broom, and Dead Shrimp Blues. While his sales were not prolific, they were clearly good enough for Johnson to be summoned back for some more recording. This time, he went to Dallas and recorded 3 more sides on June 19th, 1937. His anniversary's coming up. The following day, he cut 13 more takes of 10 more songs. That's insane.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, dude.
Like, that's crazy. To do that much, that quick, while all touring. So, like, when is he writing this material, practicing it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, hang on a second. I hate to interject. Steve, you said June 19th. That is the Wednesday when this episode drops.
Wow, that's crazy.
What a fucking weird coincidence.
That's tight. Creepy. Damn.
Wow, 1937 to 2019. This drops on the 82nd anniversary of that recording. Synchronicity, boys.
Yeah.
To the max. So, and then shortly after that, unfortunately, the next year, Robert died in Greenwood on August 16th, 1938. 27 years old. He's part of the 27 Club. So, was Robert Johnson murdered? There's basically hearsay as to precisely how he died. It is believed that Robert was playing a juke attached to the Three Forks store near Greenwood, Mississippi. According to David Honeyboy Edwards, he was poisoned at the store. He got so sick that he had got so sick that he had to be taken the 3 miles into Greenwood where he died. The suspicion is that Robert had an affair with the wife of the owner of the Three Forks, the one he was singing all them songs to. And it was he that poisoned Robert. Now, Preston, you say you have a slightly different version of the tale?
Right. So at this point in his career, he had become such an influential guitar player that he started going to some of the white clubs and around that area and was playing. So he was at a bar, he was up on the stage, he was playing his guitar, and the wife of the owner, she was, had a nice butt, had, some nice attributes. And Robert kept grabbing at her, like trying to like fill her up, and then he kept asking for more beer. And being in the early 20s and 30s, A white bartender is not going to suffice of having a black man grab his wife and trying to hit on her. So he, in fact, put rat poison in Robert's beer. And as Robert is just knocking back these beer full of rat poison, he was on his last song. He stood up and just fell over dead and was foaming at the mouth. And that is the folklore of when they say that the devil came back and took his soul.
Mm-hmm. Now, I had heard it was whiskey, though.
Yeah,
that
whiskey,
he had
beer.
Don't you say they're the same thing? But yeah, the story I heard was he went up to the bar to buy a whole bottle because he had quite a thirst back in that time.
A thirst.
And when the guy got him the bottle, the seal was broken. And so somebody saw that and like basically grabbed the bottle and knocked it out of his hands. And he said, Robert, don't you know you don't drink out of a brand new bottle of booze that's been had the seal broken? And he grabbed the bottle, off. It was tipped over. He picked it back up and he says, "Boy, don't you know you don't slap a $7 bottle of whiskey out of my hand?" And then, he drank it. And then, just like you said, he went up and played a little bit and then fell. So
crazy.
Yeah.
And then, through the research of Gail Dean Wardlow, it has come to light that on the back of the death certificate was information that points to the fact that Johnson may have been born with congenital syphilis. According to a doctor, it is possible that he had an aneurysm caused by syphilis and his love of drinking moonshine. So, it's just a mystery of how this man died. God. So, there's also...
Preston loves his syphilis.
I guess so. I guess there's just as confusing of where he's buried. There are 3 headstones erected in separate cemeteries around Greenwood. One is a headstone erected by Sony Music at another location, a headstone paid for the members of ZZ Top. That's pretty cool. In the summer of 2000, an 85-year-old lady called Rosie Exridge said that her husband helped to bury Johnson in a graveyard about 3 miles from Three Forks. This has now had a headstone placed in the graveyard.
Wow. Like the old shell game on his body.
Yeah, right? That's what I was thinking. Just how did Robert Johnson become such a brilliant guitarist? Here we go. The most famous myth surrounding Johnson's life, one that has inspired, fascinated, and taxed everyone, is the one that tells of him selling his soul to the devil. People living in the Delta today roll their eyes when asked by eager blues tourists to tell them where they can find the crossroads. Others, of course, do not bother asking. They just go to the junction of Highway 61 and Highway 49 and have their photograph taken. The current crossroads of the 2 highways is at least half a mile from one that would have existed in Johnson's lifetime. The point is there are no actual crossroads. In Crossroad Blues, Robert is singing of a man's need to make choices and the fundamental choice between good and evil. I went to the crossroad, fell down on my knees. I went to the crossroad, fell down on my knees. Ask the Lord above, have mercy, now save poor Bob, if you please. There was one long-standing Delta myth that talks of a bluesman waiting by the side of a deserted country crossroads in the dark by the moonless light, for Satan himself would come and tune his guitar. It's a story that made relevant in the construction of the Robert Johnson myth when coupled by Johnson's frequent references to the devil. In his songs included Me and the Devil Blues, in which he sings Me and the Devil was walking side by side, Preachin' Blues, Up Jumped the Devil, Bob with the ball, the bang.
Oh my God. You sneaky bastard.
And Hellhound on My Trail. Mytholize Johnson's supposed deal with the devil. Now, keep in mind, the Hellhound on My Trail, like, they were saying in that documentary that sometimes, like, because it could just be the coincidence of when people drink a lot, they tend to get when you basically got rot gut and your liver is shot, you're a shell of yourself. You start hearing voices, seeing things because you're constantly intoxicated. They said that sometimes he would say he was hearing dogs and shit too. So like kind of weird stuff like that. But that could just be, the dude's been through a lot in his life. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah.
And so who knows when I hear it say whether what's true or not. But, so he said, Johnson was far from the only bluesman who sang about the devil. Skip James, Tampa Red, Lonnie Johnson, Joe Williams, and Petey Wheatstraw all sang of Satan. The latter even nicknamed himself the Devil's Son-in-Law after one of his 1931 recordings. Robert Johnson's influenced just about everyone that picked up a guitar and played blues and rock. Eric Clapton has been one of the most vocal to pay tributes to the king of the Delta Blues, including recording a complete album in his name, 2004, Sessions for Robert J. pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to interject really quick. So when the tale that the reason why he sold his soul to the devil, and so how did the devil make him this amazing guitar player? So everybody who ever picks up a guitar, you're using your 4 fingers, so from your pointer all the way to your pinky. That's what you're using to play the frets of the guitar, and that's how you're hitting all the notes and everything. Mm-hmm. So Robert Johnson's thumb, from the knuckle to the tip of the thumb, was longer than any man had ever seen. So he was actually able to play with all 5 fingers of the guitar, which gave him that weird, eerie. I mean, he was able to hit notes that nobody else could hit in the way
it
that
would
he
almost
could
sometimes sound like 2 guitars were playing at the same time, playing different parts of the song.
Yeah. That's what they said, is that whenever Sun and I forgot the other guy's name, but whenever he comes back basically and kicks the door down, they're in the middle of, playing a set, and they're taking a break. And all of a sudden, this man shrouded in a shadow with a big hat covering his face is playing that guitar. And people are like, what the fuck? Because it was noises they had never heard before.
Yeah.
And they said it sounded like 2 men playing separate guitars, or almost like, one man playing, they explained it like one man playing a guitar and the other one playing like a bass behind it, because he's basically playing 2 different melodies almost on the top of the guitar, and on, the neck, and then down where you regularly normally strum. I don't know the anatomy of a guitar.
Now, in the Library of Congress, like music history time. So in the Library of Congress, he was such an influential guitar player of that genre that out of all the blues artists from that era, the Library of Congress has all the original pressings on the wax cylinders. So before vinyl, they actually had these little, wax tubes, and inside the tube was where, kind of the pressing was made. And the little needle from the phonograph would resonate inside that wax tube, and that's what would allow you to hear the music. And so the Library of Congress was like, this guy is so important that they actually kept and cataloged all of his music. And then during like the 40s and 50s, especially during World War II, a lot of your black soldiers, they weren't like your privates or your lieutenants. They were like the cooks. They were the ones that were doing kind of the grunt work. And they would ship over, they would take with them all of these Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters records. And then after the war was over, they actually couldn't afford to ship them back because you were just the cook, you were the potato peeler, like we're not going to pay you anything. So they just left them over there. And so then people like Mick Jagger, Pete Townsend, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, these were like the poor white people of England, and they would go to these record shop, and these records are the only thing that they could afford. And that's what they grew up listening to, and that's what influenced modern day rock and roll. And that's why we have rock and roll the way it is, because Eric Clapton, that's all he could afford was, like a penny Robert Johnson record. Like he couldn't afford all the other crap that was being played during that time.
Wow.
Damn. Well, he was heavily influential to the Rolling Stones as well.
Yeah.
And I want to say, did they cover one of his songs?
Dude, everybody covered one of his songs.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Jimi Hendrix, who's a god at the guitar, covered a crap ton of his songs. So
Another man who was in the 27 Club.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
Who also choked on vomit.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. One of the other parts that goes along with the mythos of him, meeting the devil at the crossroads and having the devil tune his guitar in exchange for his soul, is that he also may have learned guitar. I forget who it was, but there was a guy who supposedly taught him how to play guitar, but would only teach him in a cemetery. So they would have to meet at the cemetery. And the guy basically told, Robert, that, if you're going to play for anybody, you're going to play for the dead, because no matter how bad you play, you're not going to wake him up. And so they would sit on these 2 tombs that were side by side, and they'd face each other, and they'd trade notes back and forth and play guitar back and forth. And supposedly the guy told Robert that if you're good enough, then the ghost will come out from their graves and teach you how to play better. But one of the caveats was they could only play at midnight because that was the witching hour.
That's
Dun,
crazy.
dun, dun.
Who knows, man?
Yeah. Yeah, people, if you want, jump on, and we pretty well told, Steve, you pretty well told the story, but watch that Devil at the Crossroads doc, because it's only like 48 minutes of your life, and it's pretty fucking good.
And then go watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Because the black guy in that story, that's basically 100% Robert Johnson. Like, that parody is totally him, so.
Huh, hell yeah.
So good. Love that movie.
Yeah, I need to see it all. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Well, you're doing yourself a disservice.
I did finally sit down and watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High on Sunday.
Now,
Whoa.
is it? I just thought it was our time, Mr. Han. I fucking love
Is that
that
a reference
movie.
I didn't catch?
Yeah, dude, Fast Times. Spicoli when he tells Mr. Han,
Aloha, Mr. Han.
"This is our time."
Yeah.
He's got that fucking bagel in his belt area.
Fucking, yeah, in the
So-
front of his pants. That was a really
So
good movie.
I'm telling you, man, you want to get her? Just put on side 2 of side 1. Like, so good. I love that fucking movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
Shayla
Phoebe
and I had
Cates.
neither one
Oh.
seen that before, so we
Yeah,
watched it. It's pretty
You were
fun.
loving that pool scene, man. Get over it.
You know it. Yeah, I think that's the pool scene that might have inspired the Christmas Vacation pool scene.
Right?
Well, before we go on to the next story about, music and paranormal encounters, I wanted to kind of further elaborate on the Crossroads and shed some more light on exactly what that could be, and also a little bit deeper, some interesting the devil's backstory of maybe like the true history of where the devil came from and what happened to him. So I'll make it fairly quick. This isn't going to be too long, but the Crossroads, beyond being, arguably Bone Thugs and Harmony's greatest song ever, might not actually be a physical place on the map. And Steve, you kind of alluded to that earlier, how people try to go and take their photo by the actual crossroads and nobody knows where it is and they just assume it's that intersection.
Yeah. Because going back to like county roads back then.
Yeah, we don't know
existed
where he
then.
went, man. Just some mood-lit intersecting dirt roads. But theoretically, the crossroads aren't a physical place, but instead more of a paranormal area. In folk magic and mythology, the crossroads actually represent a location between worlds. Such a site where supernatural spirits can be contacted and paranormal events can take place. So think of it more as kind of like that veil we always talk about. It might be a place where, the physical world and the veil the veil's at its thinnest and those two worlds cross paths. Symbolically, it can mean a location where two realms touch, therefore representing a place literally neither here nor there, or betwixt and between. And something we didn't talk about on Steve, on your story, is the blues back in the day, back in the 20s and 30s, that was considered to be the devil's music. And there's a lot of really cool propaganda behind that because, there was a caveat of, Sunday morning rolls around and the churches at that time, especially your African American churches, were mainly being populated by the women and the children, but a lot of your men weren't actually in the churches. And so the pastors were getting kind of pissed off because they're not really making any money and none of the men are there. So they start saying and start blaming these juke joints and these blues shows as being the devil's music, causing the men to stay out late and drink too much, thus missing church.
Not because it's fucking boring at home.
Or at least in church.
Yeah, like
But yeah, that was always a big thing too, is not a lot of people wanted to help out Robert, and a lot of people blamed his misfortune with his two wives that passed away. They blamed that on him playing the devil's music. And that's something they always said too, is, the devil's hounds were definitely chasing him because the pact he made with Satan, and also the fact that he's playing the devil's tunes. So, but there's a lot of stuff that mixes up in there with, hoodoo as well. Because in hoodoo, an African-American magical spirituality, well, that didn't even sound right, but you know what I'm saying? It's a form of African-American magic. We won't get into it on this episode, but in order to acquire a lot of skills in hoodoo beliefs, such as playing a musical instrument better, throwing dice better, or dancing, one might visit the crossroads a certain amount of times, either at midnight or just before dawn, again, during that famous witching hour. And it said that the person will meet a black man, but not an African American, but just a man who is shrouded in shadow and built out of smoke, or just basically just solid black. Some people believe that man to be the devil.
The beast.
And he will bestow upon you the desired skill, i.e., on your knees, holding your guitar up in the air, begging for the devil to tune your guitar so you could just for once get a taste of that sweet, sweet spotlight in those juke joints.
This is just a tribute. This shit's all true, man. This all happened to Tenacious D. Jack Black, Kyle Gass, walking along a lonesome road.
Yep.
Done.
Oh, wow. Are they singing about Robert Johnson?
Right.
Similar story. But, and also in a lot of voodoo and hoodoo, Papa Legba is the gatekeeper of the crossroads, and he is the one who allows or denies the chance to speak with the dead or the devil.
First off, get a better fucking name. That name's terrible.
Dude, it's a terrible name, but did you see him in American Horror Story? He was the best part of that season of Witches.
Yes, sniffing that cocaine,
I
stealing
forgot
baby
about
souls.
that.
Yeah,
That was the Coven series from Louisiana.
In regular,
that was dope.
in regular mythos, he actually is more or less an older man, kind of walking with a cane with a big straw hat. But man, they really juiced him up in American Horror Story. He was a fucking badass, like a zombie pimp.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about the crossroads. So another little tidbit here, getting back on track. Robert Johnson was far from the first musician to actually supposedly make a deal with the devil at the crossroads. Supposedly, Niccolo Paganini, a famous Italian violinist, guitarist, and composer, he was one of the most celebrated violin virtuosos of his time and left his mark on the pillars of modern violin technique as well, similar to the way, Johnson did. And he's very famous for his 24 Caprices for solo violin op. 1. But supposedly he too was said to sell his soul to the Dark One in exchange for musical prowess. Uh-huh.
And we all know that the devil went down to Georgia and lost that competition to the fiddle player.
Yeah, because he's a coward.
Oh, you and your segues, Preston. Let me tell you a little bit about the first time the devil lost a deal. How about that?
Okay.
So, speaking of the Dark One, here's the religious pit that I warned you about earlier. I've been reading a lot about Satan and the devil, Lucifer, and all that stuff. Since Presto and I went down to the Museum of Shadows, and I had my experience in the room they call the Next Realm, in Nebraska with Big Dobbs and Rob Bones and Micah and everybody. So I found a pretty cool backstory on one of the most famous fallen angels. So in the beginning, when God made man and woman, he promised eternity to the Garden of Eden. And so he said, this is something that needs to be oversaw. So I'm going to give the job of overseer to my right-hand man, Satan, who at that point was still an angel. He was kind of one of the higher ranking angels and kind of a big to-do himself. So this is pre-damnation.
Say big doo-doo?
A big to-do, a big head honcho, big grand poobah. So Satan had the job of not only watching over the Garden of Eden, but also he was supposed to be the mentor of the humans, Adam and Eve. He was supposed to help, guide them because at that point they were the first of God's creations, the animals, to have free will. But he supposedly stood beside God and shared almost equal ranks as the Almighty. But old Satan was a little bit of a bad boy and didn't really like the way that he had to keep tabs on man, and really got bored really quick with making sure that humans acted accordingly. So he started kind of getting amused by the idea that he would be able to give man certain impulses and, maybe let Adam and Eve do as they pleased, like maybe eat that big ol' juicy apple. Because Satan was a little bit jealous of Adam and Eve and the fact that they pretty much had near free will and they were allowed to live in, an eternal paradise known as the Garden of Eden. So Satan hatches his plan thinking that if he can get Adam and Eve to revolt against God's rules, hopefully God would get mad enough to banish Adam and Eve from the garden, and then Satan himself would gain access to the garden and live there himself. So supposedly Satan actually disguised himself as the great serpent and convinced Eve to eat the apple, and thus give in to her urges. But in an ironic twist, God got pissed off at Satan for this and cast him down to eternal damnation. But here's the interesting part. When Satan fell to earth, the sheer force of him being banished caused a great hole at the bottom of the earth. The crater itself became hell. But we may have all misunderstood what exactly hell is. Because when he hit the bottom of the crater so hard, he was scarred and scorned and became a massive, wretched beast that had 3 faces and 6 wings. But the creature thus was trapped waist down in a giant lake of ice. So being frustrated by his predicament and being stuck in such a stupid trap, he constantly tried to flap his wings to get pulled out of the ice water. But ironically, the more and more he flaps his wings, the more he cools the water and continues to make the ice, even colder and colder, keeping him trapped in a very simple and ironic prison. However, it's said from time to time, he is able to temporarily make his way up to Earth to bargain with a few mortals for something of value, like Killer Blues guitar skills in exchange for their mortal souls. So his classic trick, because he's always viewed himself as the smartest guy in the room, is to try to trick, humans. So that's why you classically see the tale of Robert and the violinist and all these other stories of selling your soul to the devil. Once in a while, supposedly, he gets a trip up and he tries to steal a couple more humans, just like the first trick he played on Eve. So what's ironic is at the end of the day, his body and soul remain trapped in such a rudimentary snare, it proves that he may actually be the biggest fool in the room himself. Because if he just stopped flapping his wings, the water could warm up and he could thus just walk right out. But instead, he continues to keep the air cold by flapping his wings furiously, and so he remains stuck there for eternity, consuming the lost souls of the wretched who have been damned to hell. So it's argued that Satan actually may not be the ruler of hell, but its first prisoner.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I never knew about that either. But and apparently there's more reading we can talk about later. But supposedly Satan, Lucifer, and the devil are all 3 separate entities. But we can talk about more of that later.
Just like the Holy Trinity.
Right. So, Steve, you were saying something about Tenacious D, though. Do you want to jump back on that real quick?
Yeah, I love the band Tenacious D. They have like a whole mythos about them. They have a bunch of music that talks about like the metal and the Satan and all that type of shit. Obviously, it's all for fun and stuff. But if you've not watched the movie, you totally should. Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. Basically, same thing happens. They're a band and they're trying to form the world's greatest band, and then they meet the devil and they make a deal with the devil that if they beat them, then they have to pay the rent. The devil has to pay their rent and basically and then instead of giving them like all the skills they need, but because they beat the devil, then it gave them the inspiration to write tribute. And that's when
the greatest song in the world.
Yeah, basically like...
No, it was just a tribute.
Yeah. So, it's pretty cool.
Because they couldn't remember the greatest song in the world.
Yeah, if you've not seen that movie, it's a pretty good cult classic. You have to watch it and know that it's silly and satire. You can't think it's going to be some best... I don't know. When I went and watched that movie in theaters, I was so pumped for him with the very first day. And... there was like a group of like, I don't know, probably because it was like 3:00 in the day. So like, all the older people go, and there was probably about 4 or 5 older people sitting there, and the movie started and Kickapoo started playing, and they were like, what the hell? And then finally it has Jack on the thing, and he starts doing the Classico. Can't you see he's the man? Let me hear you applaud. And then they were like, what the fuck? And like they all got up and left. It was so good. I was like, you fucking idiots. Like, you just thought you were going to see a Jack Black comedy? No, this is Tenacious D, man.
Yeah. Well, when we saw it, we went and saw it later in the evening, probably like 7 or 8 p.m. And we had the opposite happen. There was an older couple sitting in front of us, and it was like an older man, probably in his 60s, his wife, and like probably 2 of her girlfriends or her sisters or whatever. And they were kind of the same at first, like, what the fuck is this? And by the end, they were like laughing, cheering.
That's awesome.
And clapping and shit. And then when the movie's over, the husband's like, wow, that was pretty great. And the wife's like, that was just so stupid. And then the other two were like, yeah, but it was actually a lot of fun. And so like they walked out
awesome.
talking about how like they stumbled into it on accident and actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like in the Rise of the Phoenix album, he's like, when the Pig Destiny was released, the critics thought it had bombed or something like this, and he's like, it was a stinky pile of cheese, some shit like that. Fuck that movie's great. But yeah, it ties into all this. It's like more of like a funny version of it, and
That's awesome.
you get to see Sasquatch in there, and you get to see baby sassafras. So check that out. But you already are my little sassafras.
Oh yeah. That's pretty bad.
And that's John C. Reilly as John C. Reilly as Sasquatch. So good.
Oh, what was it really?
Yeah. But you already are.
Well, let me be the little bit of meat between these two big old buns, because I've got a short story. I got a short story, but I think my my paranormal rock and roll story is going to probably fail in comparison to your guys's. But let me go ahead and do it anyway. Are you guys either familiar with the band The Moody Blues?
I am, but I've never heard this story, so wow me.
Nights in white satin, never reaching the end.
But then they also sing one called Your Wildest Dreams, and I never knew they sang this, but this one's fucking trippy like an alien abduction anyway.
What song is that?
That's called Your Wildest Dreams. I always thought that was the intro to like Carl Sagan's, Cosmos or something. I didn't know it was an actual fucking song, but yeah, apparently the Moody Blues were on their way home from a concert in London, or they were driving back to London rather, in 1967. And as they were driving down the highway, some of the band members in the back of the van looked out the back window and realized there was a really strange light up in the sky. And so one of them, Graham Edge, was really perplexed by it. So he told everybody in the van, like, hey guys, pull over. There's a really weird light. And I don't remember there being an actual radio station tower this far out in the country. We should stop and take a look. And so it should be noted that the Moody Blues also had the roadies with them, but the road crew were in a big truck in front of them. So the road crew never realized they pulled over. So the Blues, I think it consisted of about 5 different members. Denny Lane, Mike Pender, Ray Thomas, Clint Warwick, and then Graham Edge. They all pull over to the side of the road. They get out, and they're watching this really weird UFO. It's like a big red light, and it gets closer and closer and closer. And they're watching it, and next thing you know, they're like, wait, what the fuck's going on? Because as this thing got closer to them, they realized it was a metallic, metal-shaped cigar craft, but the bottom had blue and red lights kind of zipping back and forth, pulsing almost like a Knight Rider's car. And Edge says what was really bizarre is the fact that while they're watching this craft get closer and closer, it lands in a field across the 2 lanes of the highway. But as they're watching it, they notice they can't hear any noise other than them talking to each other. So this Oz effect, kind of kicks in, and they can't hear any of the nocturnal animals. They can't hear any road noise, any of that kind of stuff. There's no cars coming. And Graham says it's almost like we're mesmerized in a dream. And so they're watching this thing, and they mentioned how like this weird little dull-looking short protrusion lifted up off the top of the craft like a hatch. And then as this happened, they all 5 say they were simultaneously gripped with dread and panic. And so they ran back to the car, jumped in. The car started up, instantaneously. There's no issue with the engine turning over. There's no issue with, it stalling out. They get back on the highway and they get back to town. And they're all freaked out, and they're already kind of worried about, this idea that we're rock and rollers. It's the 60s. We're probably drunk. We're probably stoned. We're probably, doing drugs and shit like that. So they kind of had a hard time telling people about it. But years and years later, when Graham did an interview, they asked him, what do you think was driving that craft? And he told the interviewer that basically we never saw any creatures, But he said, I kept getting this impression in my head of these short, skinny creatures with fat, almond-shaped heads and big black eyes. And, so they think they had a classic encounter of the fourth kind. And what was stranger, in fact, beyond all that, is when they finally made it back to their house, they had been missing for 3 hours.
Wow.
So the road crew got back to the house or the domicile they're all staying at, and they're like, what the fuck's going on? Where are they? And they showed up about 3 hours later after the road crew already made it home.
Pretty insane.
Yeah. So that's my story about the Moody Blues. It's not nearly as cool as yours, Steve.
So cool, though. I had no idea about that. Their
Yeah, it's
music is
pretty
trippy,
interesting. Yeah, it's a super cool story. I think it kind of influenced their music, but back in that time, I mean, the Moody Blues went from the 60s up through, I think, like the 80s at least, man. So they had a lot of that space age sound in some of their music too. And they too were considered to be alt rockers, mixing classical rock with modern rock and roll. But yeah, that's mine. Let's get over that and get on to yours, Preston, because you got some good shit coming.
I do, and so I'm going to talk about Mars Volta and their album, The Bedlam and Goliath. And so I sent you that song, Goliath. What'd you think?
Steve, what'd you think?
I love it. I've heard it before. I fucking love that band.
Oh yeah,
It's trippy. All their music's like that. It's awesome.
So it all sounds like they tied two cats together and beat him with guitars.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
No, it was heavy. I didn't realize that's what the guy sounded like. He's got a pretty high pitched voice, and then lots of guitars, lots of wheedle 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 wheedle.
Yeah,
but that wasn't bad, dude. It's not normally my cup of tea. I listen to it every day, but I will definitely get into it more.
Hey, right on. So Mars Volta, one of my favorite progressive rock bands, and for you non-music nerds, like progressive rock, like I don't want to do like another music history hour because Sean will kill me if I go into too much musical history here.
No, you can go into as much as you want on this episode. Just, I mean, don't go past 2 hours.
Right. So stereotypically, progressive rock is long solos, long albums, fantasy lyrics, grandiose stage sets, costumes, and this obsessive dedication to technical skills, so like the fast guitar playing and the time signatures that are all over the fucking place. So like if you listen to that song, like if you listen to the drums and then listen to the guitars, like there's like this weird beat going on. And that's progressive rock in a nutshell. It's fucking trippy shit.
The amount of instruments that are played in this song is ridiculous. You got a violin. You got a trumpet. You got a fucking a saxophone. Sorry, one of the what's the triangle thing? Needs more
triangle.
Yeah,
cowbell.
Triangle, yeah. I say cowbell. They got drums. They got a keyboardist, a guitar, maraca, guitar, bass, hitting a cymbal. He's got some other fucking weird thing he's making noises with.
Yeah, a lot of them use like Metatrons,
theremins, shit like that. My favorite band of all time is Colleen Cambria, and they're a progressive rock band.
Yeah. So this story takes place with two key members of the band, guitarist Omar Rodriguez and vocalist Cedric Bixler. So 2006, maybe, I don't know. I really couldn't get, like the juicy details of when exactly all this happened. The album came out like late 2007, early 2008, and most of this took place before then. So it's a pretty good guess, 2006. And, historically, we don't need to be that accurate with this story. So 2006.
When have we been about the facts on this show?
Yeah, fuck the facts, right?
We do the best we can with what Wikipedia tells us.
Yeah, so 2006.
And we don't donate shit to that site either.
Yeah. Omar was in a curio shop. So Steve, that basically is just a shop of curiosities, right? So he's in this curio shop in Jerusalem when he finds the soothsayer, a.k.a. the talking board from hell. And it was old. It had a mystical feel to it. And he thought, fuck it, man. This is like the perfect gift for my bandmate who's into all this weird shit. And I'm going to surprise him with it. So he bought it.
It's like me buying a Ouija board for Sean.
Yeah. And he gets back to the States. And around this time, they are on tour with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which those two bands really don't go together. But so the Red Hot Chili Peppers, they're like fucking tearing through the venues. And then afterwards, they're partying, and Mars Volta, they're very antisocial people. So they're like, yeah, we're not into all the partying. So we're going to go back to their to the bus. And they would start to get out the soothsayer, and they would have Ouija board sessions while everybody else was, out like doing coke and, rock and roll shit. And so this is like, this next part is really like taken from Cedric. And he goes, after the show, most of the college crowds that are at the Chili Pepper shows want to know, like, where's Flea? Can we meet Flea? Can you give me a pass so I can hang out with Flea? And we really didn't want to deal with those kinds of people. We're kind of like, we just didn't relate to him. So we went back to the bus where the new drug of choice was playing with this antique game that Omar had bought for me. We would never dim the lights. It wasn't some corny Disney version like people might picture. The lights were on. The messages started coming through, and I kept looking at Omar like, are you pushing the thing? Am I pushing the thing? And I just kept writing down everything it said because it was 10 times more creative than anything that I could come up with. The fact that I was writing everything down is what challenged the spirits that we contacted and alerted them that we had the power of unmasking their anonymity. When we first played with the board, we found poetry attached to it. We hired 2 people to translate it because it was in Hebrew and in Latin, and sometimes it was in what I think was Aramaic. One of those translators gave us back our money and didn't want to talk to us or have anything to do with us again. The other, who was a little more brave, translated the verses for us, and it turned out that they translated what was like traditional sing-song nursery rhymes, and the more I read the stuff and the further I am away from the project now, the more I realize that it is a story seeped in a modern-day phenomenon of honor killings. So, weird. The soothsayer offers them the names of Goliath, Mr. Muggs, Patience Worth, and Tourniquet Man.
I want that.
Now, it tells them the story about a man, a woman, and her mother, about lust floating between them, about seduction, infidelity, pain, and eventually murder, entrails, absence, and curses, oblivion. Oh my.
Basically a good fucking time.
Yeah,
good fucking time. It's kind of, it's exactly the kind of spooky shit you want from your talking board, like real life exorcist stuff. And now I'm going to lay on the meat and taters of the story.
Do it. Hit me with the meat and taters.
So the soothsayer starts asking, hit me with the meat and taters.
Hit
so the
me with your best sponge.
Wow. The soothsayer starts asking the band what they have to offer. This connection that sets up runs both way, and the invisible voices begin to speak their appetites. They threaten oblivion and dissolution and offer it as seduction. The voices merge as Goliath and state that they are Legion, which is kind of like a classic, like multi-demon thing,
Fuck
right?
That demon.
Fuck that. So basically, like, it's a metaphysical quagmire, an unfettered saint whose hunger to return to the real world grows more urgent with each connection. So there are proper ways to close a session with a Ouija board, but Mars Volta is like, fuck that. Like, we're progressive rockers, we're adventurous, and they stay in contact. And they start taking phrases from the board and inserting them into songs. And so the starving Goliath extends its influence, and that's when things on the tour start to go awry. Amps, soundboards, guitars malfunction, shit explodes, you name it, it happens. The existing
Dogs
drummer...
and cats living together.
Mass hysteria, right? So the drummer, he starts getting into conflicts with like the rest of the bandmates. He's pissed with everybody. He eventually says, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm out. He leaves the band broke and penniless. Somehow, like, the lead singer, Cedric, he gets like a gimp foot and he has to have like surgery to fix it. And then they have to give him the special shoe and he's forced to like learn how to rewalk with that foot. The engineer, the sound engineer for all the records, he was working on this new project with them. He basically has like a mental breakdown and yells at Rodriguez, I'm not going to help you with this record. You guys are trying to do something very bad, something evil. You guys are making me crazy, and anybody who listens to this album is going to go crazy. So he just fucking leaves the project. Omar's studio starts to flood with water, and he starts to I'm going to have a mental breakdown. And then long-term album delays start to happen because tracks that they had recorded just start to disappear. Like they go back to the hard drive and say, okay, guys, let's fine tune this. Like the songs just disappeared. They start having like
his game up. He's got digital skills now.
And so they start having like a hard time sleeping. So everybody's complaining that they're not sleeping at night. Like they're waking up at like 3:00 in the morning. They're having like all these weird nightmares. And then like all the weird nonsensical words that the talking board is giving them, like they start to notice like when they're watching TV or watching documentaries about mass suicides, that those phrases are popping up in those documentaries. Like they're like, holy shit, I've heard that phrase before. And they go back and it was something that they found in one of their sessions. Now the soothsayer keeps telling them the story about, Goliath. And it's becoming more brutal. And then one day they realize that somebody had basically laminated the top of the talking board over this piece of wood. So they peeled that back because it's starting to come undone, and they find like this hidden poem written on like weird conical shapes. Mm-hmm. At this point, they're like, "Fuck it, dude, we got to get rid of this thing." And so there are a couple ways that you could break this connection, like wear white for a whole entire year, surround yourself with salt, close the board and ask someone else to open it, thus transferring ownership, which Mars Volta, if you're listening, I would have done that for you guys. You could break the board into several pieces and sprinkle with holy water or bury it. And that's what Omar did. He wrapped the soothsayer up in a cloth and found a proper place for it in the soil. And then Cedric had asked, like, dude, do not tell me this location, because he said he buried it because he knows that I am obsessive compulsive, and despite everything that was happening, I would probably want to play the game again.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now, I know you're asking this one question of if this shit really happened, why haven't we all gone insane from this cursed album by listening to it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we should have gone insane, or maybe it's because it's all bullshit and just clever marketing. Or, according to Omar, we have taken extreme measures to have the project blessed by more positive forces. That's why there are tracks titled Metatron, who is said to have believed in some of the myths behind curing some of the ailments associated with the Ouija boards. Metatron, Ariel, Saint Gabriel, or some of the saints that you are supposed to call on when you have problems of this nature. I named one of the songs Elenia after the real name of actress Helen Mirren because she is one of my favorite actresses, and the song is a little lighthearted and different from the subject matter. There are a lot of different things that I did to fight fire without being touched by the male spirit of Goliath. So those weird time signatures, I couldn't find the exact time signatures of some of the songs, but supposedly he said that they changed the time signatures because the Fibonacci sequence or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They used like certain numbers like 333, whatever like holy numbers were. They changed the time signatures of some of those songs to counteract all the craziness that's going on. And the song Soothsayer contained field recordings that Omar recorded while in Jerusalem. So when you start to listen to that song, you can actually hear background noise from the Jewish quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter. It's not really spooky, but it's kind of fucking cool that he added part of Jerusalem into where he found the talking board into that song.
It's tight.
So some of the lyrics. Have you seen the living tired of their own shells? All the non-believers, torsos in the well. Where the hole was dug the first time, the head carries the body. I need brand new skin,
Truth.
incarnated debts. The night I remember what you slipped into my glass. I foamed at the mouth with the lights winked at me, and now my shape is kept. Let me be your tourniquet, man. Let me keep you as a favor. So if you break me a mirror, hang the broken pieces. Now, the other cool thing about that album was when they released it on vinyl, when you open up the actual fold of the vinyl album, you actually have a whole... Yeah, you have a whole talking board.
Wow.
And then they released a 45 called Mr. Muggs, who was one of the voices that came across, and that 45 is in the shape of a planchette. So while you're listening to the album, you can in fact use your very own talking board provided to you by Mars Volta.
You have that, right?
Oh yeah, I have that.
That's
Oh, wow.
sick, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Get me some pictures of that and I'll post them.
He did,
Yeah.
I think, right? Didn't you?
Yeah, I sent them to you.
Yeah.
Wow. Were they in a text message? I didn't see them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the group text message. And because that when the band was releasing their stuff on vinyl wasn't really popular or coming back full force yet. So there was very limited quantities of that. And like right now on eBay, Bedlam and Goliath goes for about $300-400. So it's a pretty expensive little vinyl album to own.
Wow.
And the title Bedlam and Goliath, so that always kind of confused me because I thought like Bedlam was like a place, but over in Europe the term Bedlam is something they would use for a sanitarium or like a crazy house, and the actual Old English word of Bedlam means like confusion to anger. So the real title of the album would be like the confusion of Goliath or the confusion or the anger in Goliath.
Okay.
So it's just a really fucked up, crazy story.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah. And the fact that they actually used parts of the basically like the seances that they were conducting, they actually used that and integrated those into the lyrics. Like that's just fucking crazy.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's nuts. It's pretty interesting, man. Thanks for telling us that. I had no idea.
It reminds me a little bit of the, wasn't it Led Zeppelin that had that big, long fucking experience with the Ouija board?
Yeah, Zozo on Led Zeppelin 4 or 3.
We'll cover that again sometime then, because I wanted to do Led Zeppelin on this one, but that whole story of them and their saga with the Ouija board and Zozo, that could almost be an episode by itself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly well known, so I mean, whatever. I think Jimmy Page used the Zozo symbol, I think, for some shit. I don't know. Maybe we will talk about it sometime, but fuck, that's crazy, dude. I didn't realize you had the album. I remember you talking about the planchette there, because the vinyl is shaped like a planchette, right? And it's super short.
The 45 is,
Yeah. So that's cool. Now the picture you sent us, though, the planchette text seems to be, facing the right way, but the actual talking board, all the text is backwards. Is that right? Is that normal?
I don't know. Let me look at what I sent you.
I didn't know if the photo just got flipped or if that's the actual orientation of the actual.
Oh no, the photo got flipped. So.
Oh, it did. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's weird. So okay, you must have had the vinyl upside down then, because it actually reads correctly.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was placed. The text was backwards, so maybe you couldn't use it as a talking board. Or is it the fact that they're all possessed by Mr. Muggs, and this is their way to spread the evil gospel by getting all of us to use their talking board?
Oh, shit. I never thought about that. It just got deeper. And Mr. Muggs, coincidentally enough, is a famous chimpanzee from like the 30s or the 40s.
Okay.
So he was one of the first chimpanzees to be trained and used in movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, a monkey named Ham was one of the first chimps to go to space. I think it might have been a Reese's.
Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape.
Right.
We're going to listener stories next, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, I got a question. So that ayahuasca shit, is that illegal here in the United States?
It's illegal everywhere in the U.S. except for like one church. There's one church. I don't know if it's like, I forget the story, if it's like its own religion or what.
Yeah.
But I want to say they got the legal rights to use it during religious ceremonies. Otherwise, you gotta go to Chile, I think.
So my thing is like, there's somebody I know that's wanting to do that, and they're like all about this church, and they want to go there, blah blah blah. Now my thing is like I've read stories about people just going insane, like it'll break your brain.
Seeing the mechanical elves and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And especially if your brain already has a chemical imbalance as it is,
Right.
whether that, from some mental illness of some sort, that can trigger it more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to explain to this person that like,
Did I ever tell you about the butterfly penis story, Steve, on ayahuasca?
no, you did this? You did ayahuasca?
No.
Oh.
So ayahuasca is basically almost like when you take it, it's like a tea. So they make like this tea mixture, and it's a whole ceremony.
Yeah, a bunch of
I love,
8-year-old boys have to spit it into a cup.
Yeah, and you after you drink it, you actually have to learn to regurgitate because if you let it sit in your belly too long, like you'll basically just kind of shit yourself, like bad, right? So this guy,
hold on. I've watched Chelsea Handler has a show on Netflix called Chelsea Does, and she has a whole episode about that, and it fucked her up. Like not like shitting, like she regurgitated, she puked and all that stuff, and but just like her experience of like well, I mean, I don't know, like it fucked her up at the time, but now that she did that and had that show and had all that limelight and had that her like talk show on Netflix, she's like stopped all that. She's seen something after that, and now she does just straight up humanitarian shit, advocating, protesting, and dedicates all her time to that and dog and animal rescue. So like that was probably her turning point, if you really think about it.
So for about $5,000 or $6,000 you can go to Chile, and you can go up into the mountains, and you can have this religious experience, right? And an actual shaman is gonna show you how to drink the ayahuasca, what to expect, and blah blah blah, and all this crap. So this guy. Yeah, so this guy was doing this, and he wrote a book about it. So he's like, one of the guys, didn't regurgitate it, and so like he basically wakes up out of the ayahuasca trance, and he's just in a pile of his own shit, like liquid poops everywhere, and he's like, dude, this is horrid. But this guy, did everything right, and he's like, I don't think this is working. And he's sitting there, and like all of a sudden he starts to see like these flashes of color, like just fireworks are exploding in front of his eyes. And he's like, I just went to this whole new world. And he's like, I looked down, and like my feet are melting, and then like my penis, like I had pants on, but it's like my penis turned into this vine. And it's like working its way out of my pants, and it's just like this beautiful, like, think of like a poison ivy, like when her little tendril plants like move up, He's like this, my penis is like moving out, and he's like, at the end of it, it turned into like this flower blossom, and it turned into this beautiful butterfly.
Hashtag
and all of a sudden, and he's like, all of a sudden the tendril just shot itself into my mouth. And literally the whole entire time I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I just ate my own dick. And he was like, that was the end of the experience.
Huh. Meanwhile, he's like got his feet up on a wall, and he's trying to never mind. Trying to suck his own dick.
Yeah. This worked for Marilyn Manson. Why can't it work for me?
Trying to suck his own shit-covered dick. Yeah, Steve, back to what you were saying. It's argued that people who have severe chemical imbalances should not use these things, but the other side of the coin is it's said to possibly help repair some of the damages you have. And it's also, I mean, I know a lot of research has been done that psychohallucinogenics can help people with severe chemical imbalances and severe mental illness as well.
So my thing is so if a person that has a chemical imbalance that maybe has some like repressed memories or blotches of time that they don't remember certain stuff for whatever reason, they don't know the reason. They do this because it's been said that this will help you come to terms with whatever was making you have that mental block.
You're
Like,
right.
You have to roll
Yeah.
the dice. Whether that could be your brain blessing you, or you can be after that be fucked.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, because of severe trauma, your brain has that mechanism that it shuts it off, and depending how bad it was, it kind of just buries it, and you forget about it for a reason.
Because for me, I would think it wouldn't be worth the chance. Like if I had some kind of repressed memory it's like I don't want to poke the bear. Like, but then again, I don't know. I mean, you
turn your whole world upside down depending on what it is.
What's that? What's the other? I'm trying to think of it. It's considered like the other weed. And I'm trying to think of what the name of the drug's
Peyote?
called. No.
Angel dust?
Kratom, K2.
No.
Like synthetic or real?
No, it's real. And it was something that was legal like a couple, like 4 or 5 years ago. And anyways, this guy took it, and it basically transported him out of his body, and he ended up floating through the ceiling, going into the room upstairs of the house that he was in. And he ended up being trapped inside a paisley quilt. Like, it actually made him feel like he was part of the fibers of the quilt.
And this
It's
shit
like
was
some
legal?
grandma paisley design. And like, he was like, I'm going to be stuck here forever. So, and then somebody else took it, and they ended up believing for a short period of time that they were a suitcase stuck in an airport, and people were like, like throwing shit on top of him, and he was stuck in that little baggage cart that was moving around.
Are you talking about acid?
No, it's not acid.
Well, I don't know. I haven't heard those tales before.
Me either. That's crazy.
But you know what stories I have heard?
What's that?
These listener stories. Let's get this cart back on the track.
Yeah.
Steve, we'll get back to that more later. I know a guy whose brother went to Chile and practiced that ceremony. Maybe I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to have a chat about what he experienced. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's always a double-edged sword if you do that kind of shit. If you're gonna, like you said, poke the bear, remember something you didn't want to know, or it could fix you. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I sent you guys both a picture in the group text. Did you get said picture?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we tweeted out 100th episode's coming. If you guys have anything you want to share, let us know. And just from Instagram alone, we got 3 pretty good hits. So I will start off with a message and a photo I received. I'll probably pronounce this wrong, but from a lady named Dora Lee or Dory Lee. And the message starts off with just a photo. And the photo seems, innocent enough. It is a blurry, what I would call accidental photo at first of, I just hit my mic, sorry. What looks like to be a man's legs wearing shorts, an old wood floor, and then a woman walking by in a white dress barefoot. And so I get the message, and the message says, "Can you tell me what you think about this photo? This is my uncle's showcasing a huge scratch on his newly finished hardwood floors. And proof there's something else who wanted a picture taken with him. The house is definitely haunted. I've lived through it." And I said, okay, so what is this photo here? Because I'm thinking, okay, all I see is a hardwood floor, 2 people in the photo, their feet, and then what looks like, maybe an H that's scratched into the wood floor. And she says toes, and I think it may be a heel from somebody who wasn't here in this dimension. My uncle thinks it's Jesus because the bottom of the dress/cloth. And I said, oh, really? So the figure at the top left is the top left of the photo? That's what we're talking about? She says, yes. The other person is my uncle. She said he's completely alone in the photo. He was the only one in the house, and this was at his house in Rhode Island. And I asked if he's had any other activity in the house besides the photo. She says the house has been haunted since well before she was born, and she currently is 39. She sent me another photo that's a little sharper with a filter put over top of it, saying, I added a filter from my Instagram on here to sharpen things up. And that's the one I sent to you guys. And I said, well, it's either Jesus or a person in a gown. Has he seen the figure before? And she says, not this one exactly, but there have been a few different ones. I've seen a couple of them myself with my very own eyes. I've had a bunch of other pictures taken that I've taken throughout the years, but they have disappeared. So, lost them or what have you, misplaced, or, spirits. We even rounded up everyone in the whole entire family and looked at their feet just in case. Right, and that's what I thought. Hell, good detective work. Hell yeah. We even rounded up everyone in the entire family and looked at their feet.
Now, what's happening here is somebody's wanting to get their hands on that camera to get all them feet pictures so they can make some money. That's what's going on here.
We even rounded up everybody in the family, the whole entire family, and looked at their feet just in case it was a glitch on his camera and a different picture was melded into this one. And not one person's toes look like these. We were unable to debunk the photo. It's crazy. And I said, oh damn, that's a pretty good way to try to debunk it too. Well, this is pretty awesome. We'll sure chat about it on tonight's episode. And I signed off with, feel free to send us more stories if you'd like. This is the biggest reason we started the show, because everyone has something weird that they have experienced that they can't explain. And she says, thank you, I will. I'm sorry, she says, I will, thank you much. So that's pretty fantastic. I'll post the photo in the notes. You guys can take a look at it. It is what it says it is. It is a gentleman's, what I'm assuming a gentleman's body. I thought it was an accidental photo at first, but no, he's taken a photo of his hardwood floor, which kind of looks like some vertical scratches, one horizontal scratch. Mm-hmm. And then what seems to be a woman or a man in a white gown walking past him hurriedly. So it's pretty cool. I'm perplexed by it. You can see what you think might be a heel, or it might just be a large knot. No, I think that's a heel. Looks like somebody's kind of walking by. You can see obvious toes, a white blur that we're assuming is a gown, and a person's heel.
Pretty weird.
So, yeah, thank you very much for that. That is awesome. And I would like to say, if you're listening, send us some more stuff. What else have you experienced there or anywhere else? But yeah, thank you so much. Now, Presto, why don't you be the meat in my sandwich?
Oh, I will. So I was with the gentleman tonight I met up with, and he's a new listener of the show. And we were kind of talking about how, like, we're recording the 100th episode, and he's like, oh man, that's no. And he was like, man, that's really cool. I've had 3 paranormal experiences my whole entire life. And he's like, after those 3, he's like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. He's like, I'm done. I'm over it. Like, I know that shit's real.
Meanwhile, you got Steve here who's begging for just one thing to happen.
Yeah. And so he's like, he's had like 2 paranormal experiences while he was in a house. And those were kind of like, to me, they were mild. And so he was talking about how when he was a kid and he would sneak out with his buddy at night, and there was like this farm field a little bit down the ways from their house, and they would scare the shit out of the cows, and they would just kind of dick around out in the woods. And whenever there were cars that were approaching, driving down this kind of brick top highway road, that they would kind of hide in the ditch because they didn't want anybody like calling the cops on them or anything like that. And so this one night that they were out, and they heard a car approach, and they could see the lights coming. So Jerry, we'll call him Jerry because he wanted to stay anonymous. He was like, oh shit, and he got down into the ditch real quick, and then his buddy was like trying to kind of like hide in the brush, and he said that he heard the car stop, and he heard the door open, like the passenger door open, and he could hear this male voice.
The hell?
And what the hell?
Huh.
He could hear this male voice say, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like, "Okay, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to hide here, and they're going to ignore me, and the guy will just drive off." And so he like again heard the male voice go, "Hey, kid, are you okay? Are you hurt?" And so he looks over to where his buddy was, and he was like, my buddy was just pitch white, like, holy shit. So at this point, Jerry was like, man, I should just, man up and just tell the guy, hey, we're just, we're out here screwing around, like, we'll go home. And he kind of pokes his head out of the ditch, and he's looking at like a 1950s, 1960 red pickup truck, and the passenger doors open, and there's nobody in the truck.
What?
Like, it's an empty fucking truck. So he's like, man, did the guy get out? Like, what's going on? And again, he heard the male voice go, seriously, kid, are you okay? And he was like, yeah. I don't know, I'm fine.
Oh, why is he Morty?
And then he said, without a beat, the door shut, and the truck took off with nobody in it. And they're watching it drive down the road. And when it got about like 2-3 miles away to where all you could see was just the back of the taillights, he was like, the taillights just disappeared. And he was like, that's it, dude. I'm fucking done with the paranormal. Never again.
What the fuck? It's like a reverse version of The Hitchhiker.
Yeah.
The old story of the ghost hitchhiker, but you got a fucking ghost jalopy. Damn. That's fucking cool. So this guy said he had 2 other stories then, right?
Yeah, he experienced like and so the house that I had, their house, I house set him for him one time when I was a kid. They went to Hawaii for a family vacation, and they needed somebody to watch their dog, and they had these really old like silver gelatin prints from like the early 1800s of like, I don't know, the great fucking grandma or whatever. And I always got the impression that those pictures were watching you. They're like they were set up to where like no matter what angle you were looking at them, like the eyes just kind of followed you. So I'm in this house by myself, and I'm watching their dog for them, and I'm in the back bedroom, and I had the dog with me in the crate, and it would always kind of whimper in the night, so I kept letting it out. And it was probably like 6-7 in the morning, and I hear this, the door of the bedroom was slightly cracked open, and I hear this male voice go, shut that fucking dog up. And then the bedroom door just slammed, and like I couldn't move, and then as soon as the door slammed, like I just kind of bolted up out of bed. Well, he had recounted one night falling asleep out in the living room watching TV. And like when he opened his eyes were kind of angled toward that hallway where the pictures were. And he saw this like dark shadowy figure kind of walk from the corner of where the stairs were and walk down that hallway and just disappear. And so we both think that maybe those fucking 1800 photos are haunted. So, And he sent me home. His mom had made some copies of them because they were old and she wanted to give them out to the family. So she had made a bunch of copies of them, and tonight, as we were talking about that story, he's like, since you have such a love of those photos, he actually gave me 2 black and white copies of those photos that I can share with you guys.
Creepy. Is one of them a baby with a boxing glove?
Nope.
So hopefully at least 2 people listening got a good chuckle out of that. My buddy Matt, Steve, you know Matt. You weren't there that night, but one time we went to Matt's dad's house and his stepmom's house, and they used to have all these old-timey photos kind of like that too. And they had this weird-ass photo, and if I remember right, it was like a baby dressed up in like Victorian clothes, and it was holding like a fucking boxing glove or some shit. It was the weirdest thing. And so like 3 or 4 of us were down in the spare bedroom trying to figure out like where we're going to sleep and just like looking at these creepy ass photos. And meanwhile, I'm pretty sure Matt was upstairs in the room directly above this room in the basement, and the air vent led straight down from Matt's room down to this room, and he started fucking making like weird noises and talking and shit through the fucking air vent, and we were all completely positive that those fucking photos were haunted.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Well, hell yeah, dude. That's awesome. Tell him thank you for that. I really
oh yeah, I will.
So our friend Hill reached out to us, and she told us a very intriguing story. It's almost a continuation of this ongoing saga of the experiences that they're currently having. she and Alan are having at their house up in Nebraska. So she says, "Hey guys, I've had another weird story and I've been meaning to write you. 2 days ago, Allie," and Allie is, Alan's daughter, "was staying over at her grandparents' for a couple nights, so Alan and I had the house to ourselves. We've been discussing buying a place soon, said we've been doing online house hunting, and we're talking about it all night. We finally went to bed around 2:30 in the morning. I was awoken to the sound of Allie's bedroom door slamming shut hard. Alan didn't wake up, but when I woke him up, he looked around. Sorry. Alan didn't wake up, but when I woke him up, we got up and looked around. Nothing was amiss. Once he was awake, he said that it was really strange because right before he fell asleep, he was staring into the hallway thinking, wouldn't it be cool if that door slammed shut? So her door was shut when you guys got up. And she says, yes, latched shut. And the carpet is so high, I replicated the door slamming and I had to follow through with force. It definitely couldn't have been the cats. I'm more and more intrigued by this spirit in our house. It's as if it can read our minds, which is creepy. If you recall when I told you the story about that weird music playing that Alan didn't hear, I was reading an article about clairaudience at the same time. It seems intelligent. I'd love any recommendations for books / audiobooks, etc. you guys have when you have time, specifically for learning about different types of hauntings. P.S. Congratulations on your 100th episode. So I said, wow, I was going to say it sounds a lot like this thing is intellectual and precognitive. I said, I'll do some digging and get back to you for some books. She said, that'd be awesome. I said, because the idea of what you're experiencing somewhat borders poltergeist activity as well, and the fact that it seems to be responsive to your thoughts and or actions. She says, this crossed my mind too and creeped me out more. And I said, exactly. Although both times Alan didn't hear it, just me. So maybe I'm the creep. He sat up in bed when the door slammed shut, but doesn't remember it. And she says, thanks. You caused this and then leave me alone in the dark. No memory of it. Ha. So basically saying Alan did this and just fucking passed out.
So poltergeist activity really makes a lot of sense in this situation,
right?
Just because a lot of the studies out there about poltergeist, typically like when you're going through any type of stress, you're having like a big life change or something like that, like you're mentally trying to process everything. So because you have all that built up anxiety or whatever it is, your subconscious is the one that's acting out. So if something intellectual is like interacting with her and it only seems to be responding to her thoughts, it's, more, I wouldn't say more than likely, but it's a possibility that the reason why that's occurring is because it's her, subconscious, the real her, that's, appearing in the real world or whatever it is that I'm trying to say. And that's why it's interacting with her, because it's like how do they describe that? Like the me, the I, and the id, or the ego. So it's just that alternate part of her that's just communicating with her, if that makes sense. I don't know. I probably butchered that.
No, I mean, to a point, it makes sense from what you're saying. Because the other thing is, are you insinuating that maybe it's Hill that has the activity associated with her? Yeah. So what I was thinking is, classically, poltergeist activity, more or less, I always thought and have read, is associated with teens, teen angst, and especially young women, young girls who are, right around that that middle school age there.
The moody blues.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so both. I mean, typically you see it in teenagers. So like teenagers, like let's say like your parents are divorcing or whatever, and you're going through like, that pubescent time, you have a lot of stress, like that inner angst is acting out. But it can also be just in adults too. So there are cases with adults where like they have a heavy load and, they're trying to process things. But, let's call it 85% of the time, it's really, young teens or young adults. But it can be adults themselves that experience that.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I don't know. Lots to think about with that, for sure. And hopefully, we didn't just add more to the holy shit, what's going on pile. Because we were there and we didn't experience anything. There wasn't really any weird energy, but hell, they had a cornucopia of stories to tell us about that house, so. But to me, it's interesting too that it went on when Allie was not at home.
Yeah.
Which, is it more or less just an echo of the energy in the house when she's not home? Again, that idea of teen angst, she's not home, but maybe it was a one instance where maybe she got upset and slammed her door. And it was kind of a reverb of that kinetic or telekinetic energy, perhaps. But yeah. Anyway, super wicked. I can't wait to hear if it happens more. And furthermore, if down the road when you guys do get a new place, I wonder if it continues, because then we know it's definitely following somebody in that family. Or you just moved into another haunted house. Either way, could be the rabbit. I blame the rabbit.
Yeah, it's a pretty big rabbit.
It's a big fucking bunny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's a great place to kind of put a pin in her and wrap things up. You guys got anything you want to plug? You guys watching anything good lately you want to recommend to everybody?
No, I haven't really been watching much of anything. Yeah, not really anything at all. I did start playing Rage 2 on the Xbox. That was pretty good. You guys are getting your game tonight, the Bloodstained.
Fuck yeah, dude. I've been waiting for 17 years to play that sequel.
Yeah,
cool boy.
Looks pretty good, so you guys should enjoy that. Yeah. You can check out our Facebook, Pixelated Paranormal Podcast. Check out our Instagram, PXL Paranormal. And give us the follow, give us the hearts, all that shit.
Hell yeah. I want to give a big shout out to John. You know who you are, sir, my fellow bibliophile. He messaged us a while back, and I forgot to give him a shout out, but he messaged me privately and said that if I was interested, a book by Paul Barber called Vampires, Burial, and Death, Folklore and Reality was on sale at a used bookstore on eBay for like $4. So I jumped on that, and that came in. And this, I think, is going to be a pretty badass little read here. It talks about different, centuries of folklore about vampires and how it ties into, what I'm assuming is, modern myths, legends, and everything else. So I can't wait to get into that shit. But John, thanks, man. I sure appreciate that. Cool. All right. Check out Mark's solo cast, Pixelated Sausage. Check out his video game reviews, Attack the Backlog. And Preston, what is my favorite video game podcast? I mean, race car podcast. I'm not going to
say it. Sports Cars Unleashed.
Perfect.
There.
Yeah, vroom vroom. Check them out. And our friends over in Colorado, Fear and Fame. Go ahead.
Okay, is it my turn?
It's your turn now.
Listen, guys, if you need a beard, if you want a beard, if you want to grow a beard that will make the devil lose a fiddle playing contest, check out BigDobsBeardBalm.com and use promo code PXLPARA for 20% off your order. And use that 20% off to get the new mint scent, because let me tell you what, it is the bee's fucking knees.
Yeah.
It's got mint, it's got vanilla, and it's got shit in it that I don't even know, but it just makes my nose hairs tingle, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best shit on the earth. Do yourself a favor, buy it, wear it, look fabulous.
Live it, learn it, love it.
There you go.
I might be as bold as to say that we're going to hijack the name, Alan, and we're going to call this Himalayan Yeti Mint. You call it what you want.
Telling you, man, get them paranormal scents. Mm-hmm. You do that, you make a little label for it, you put it in your trade shows, man. You're done.
Yeah, that's it. I know a guy who can make you labels. He's a short, furry guy about my height.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Hell yeah. Well, for me, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but for me, I'd like to say from the bottom of my cold, dead, morbid heart, thank you everybody who's listened, who supported us. Alan, thank you, sir, for sharing the gospel and really pushing our show to everybody. Thank all of you guys who have been with us since the beginning. Maybe you just jumped on board and just shared a paranormal story today. Oh, shit. That reminds me. We did have one other story. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave this out. I can't talk about what it is, and I absolutely hate when people are vague. We had another person reach out to us today who's been listening for a little while. He has some stuff to possibly share with us, although we can't get into it now because of the nature of what it has to do with. There are some there's some legal sensitivities that he may not be able to go out of yet to discuss some of his encounters or experiences. Anyway, that's super vague. I hate to be that vague about it. But anyway, thanks for listening, dude. And hopefully we can get over those hurdles and you can share with us some of the stuff that you wanted to talk about. But yes, potentially some pretty badass big league stuff here that we might be able to get into. Fingers crossed.
Definitely not Bush League. It's big league.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, sir. And also welcome back to Wichita. But
Word up.
yeah, thank you guys so much. And go ahead, guys. If you want to say anything, great. If not, well,
that's it, man. Thanks for having me on this ride, guys, and thanks for everybody out there listening. You guys are the best. I appreciate every one of you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for listening
Besides
to me
Corey, of course.
mispronounce. Yeah, fuck Corey. Thanks for listening to me, you know, mispronouncing words all the time and muddling through my stories. And you know what? Fuck it. Here's to 100 more.
Fuck yeah. And we'll have Corn Dog. We'll have old Corey on some of those episodes. He's been trying to get on with us too, so we'll get him in here. And Micah, I swear, dude, I will get to the tale of the Black Angel that you sent me. I'm almost done researching that. I wanted to add some more to that listener story you sent me there. So that should hopefully be on the next episode. Fingers crossed, but cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Episode 100 in the books. And like Presto said, buddy, cheers to 100 more. Steven, thank you so much for being in that back seat, baby. It is yours until you want to get out.
Yep, just begging back here.
You're right, yeah. You're probably stuck to those sticky seats by now.
Man.
Yeah.
Remember, listeners, stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway.
So when you say that, can I say anything else, or is that it?
No, I mean, you could.
Okay, sorry. I was going to say, Rob had mentioned about being on episode 100, but he just got, he was out of town for a trip this weekend, and we kind of had to do this one last minute because we recorded, this is Monday night. We're going to record, well, shit, I'm going to edit tomorrow and drop this puppy out Wednesday, but we'll get Rob back on here hopefully again sometime soon. And you know what? Above all else, big shout out to Rob. Without him, we wouldn't be here doing this show. And
Thanks, Daddy.
Granddaddy. Founding father of the show.
We'll get you out of that retirement home one of these days, buddy.
He's daddy to me because he did podcasting before me. I did, and I started, and then you guys started. So he's granddaddy to you.
He's Grandpappy
He's
Rob
daddy to me. Yeah. Grandpappy Rob.
Hell yeah. Grandpappy Rob bot. And also to Mark, man, the silent guy behind the scenes. Mark does a lot, and he puts up with a lot of my last minute emails and my, oh shit, don't post that file, post this one, because I realize I cut out someone's entire audio once. Whoopsie nuggets. Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Live and learn. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Preston, say your thing again, because I interrupted.
All right, listeners, stay spooky and stay on the paranormal highway.
Boom. Thank you so much.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. Email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.